We've got a number of people on Zoom, so I don't know if we have any apologies. Right, before we get that, I'll open with karakia. Kia tau mai te maramatanga, kia tau mai te rangi Māori, kia tau mai te kaha me te araha mō tēnei kaupapa hui e tai ki e. So we have apologies from Celia Butler. Someone move Deputy Mayor Bryant, seconded Councillor McKenzie. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. We'll now move to the public forum. So we have 2 people registered to speak in public forum. Christina Ewing on behalf of the Nelson Pistol Club and Douglas Jackson from Skate Nelson Bays. So firstly, we'll start with Christina. Yeah, so just grab a seat, push the button on the microphone. So you got 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll be very fast because there's a lot to get through.
That's right.
Good morning, Mayor King, elected members and management that's here. I've come to speak today in my capacity as Secretary of the Nelson Pistol Club and not as an employee of Council. The club has concerns that Council's communication is changeable and that it does not recognise the significance of shooting ranges in the community. The background is the club was established in 1960. It was one of the oldest pistol clubs in New Zealand and has been operating at the Golden Downs location for 36 years. The club is a non-profit community facility and registered with Incorporated Societies, Pistol New Zealand and Clubs and Ranges as controlled by the police. We were invited by the Ministry of Forestry to build, maintain and operate a shooting range at Golden Downs in 1986, and the nearby Nelson Waimea Clay Target Club were already existing at that time. There was no residential neighbours for many kilometres. In 87, Waimea County Council wrote to the club that the council had no objection to the club using the old Forest Service workshop site for a shooting range on the condition that the club had permission and obtained a lease from the Forest Service. So in 1987, the lease was signed and the club invested a substantial amount of money in the development of a compliant shooting range. Subsequently, the Crown sold the property to the club in 92. In 89, the Waimea County Council District Plan became operative 2 years after the club began operating at Golden Downs. This gives the club existing use rights under Section 10 of the RMA. The scale and intensity has remained the same, if not reduced, from when the club began operating. In 94, 7 years after the club was established, Mr. Newton purchased the old Forest Service Hall adjacent to the Pistol Club and converted it into a residential dwelling between 2 existing shooting ranges. In 97, he sold that property to Neil and Valerie Cameron, who are the directors and principal shareholders of Golden Downs Limited, and Mr. Willie Cameron, their son, is the current occupier. So some of the benefits that the club does for the community, it provides a regulated and disciplined structure to foster safe firearm education, training and competition. It is the only range in the Nelson Tasman district available for the police training. This includes scenario training in and around the club buildings. This contributes immensely to the capability of the police to safeguard our community. As a competition venue, it attracts local, national and international shooters to various events. The club has even fostered a world champion competitor. The club provides a safe and supervised facility for non-members and visitors to use their firearms, avoiding spreading casual use over multiple properties around the district, including forestry blocks or public riverbeds, which of course is unsafe. So at present, Mr. Willie Cameron, as occupier of the ex-Forest Service Hall, has raised a prolific and vexatious complaints about the club's operations, including noise emissions. The Tasman District Council regulatory team has responded to the noise complaints to the extent that the club has been issued with a letter reduce noise emissions immediately or further action will be taken. So our concerns are, how was an ex-Forest Service Hall situated between 2 firearm ranges permitted to be converted into a residential dwelling without due consideration and any consultation with the affected neighbours? Subsequently, the purchaser was also aware of the adjoining facilities and uses for which they had been built. It seems incredulous that a single complainant, knowing this, has been able to develop between the two existing gun clubs and cause so much grievance, stress and expense to the club. This may be exacerbated by Mr. Willie Cameron trying to operate a wedding and accommodation venue on his adjacent property, and Mr. Cameron currently has an active website advertising these things. The club is receiving mixed messages from the Tasman District Council. Discussion with some parties are constructive in trying to find solutions, but heavily worded communications from other areas are contradictory and confusing. Shouldn't existing rights under the Resource Management Act apply in this situation, especially considering a dwelling was permitted to be established several years after the two clubs existed? The club is well aware of Section 16 of the RMA, which speaks to ensuring that noise levels are kept at a reasonable level by adopting the best practice option. And that is why the club has submitted a noise management plan twice to council. We've hired an acoustic engineer who's actually helped us to try and reduce our noise. We've undertaken extensive burn work, acoustic barriers, fences. We have voluntarily reduced our days of shooting. We've closed Mondays and Tuesdays, and there's no shooting before 10. And we're starting to keep a log of attendees to identify possible problem times and types of firearms being used so we can address that. So due to the scope of works and the expense, the club has staged this on a 12-month program. So the current regulations, the TRMP zoning and land use planning, in my understanding, the TRMP does not identify any regulations relating to the control of shooting ranges or gun noise. The only exemptions are for agriculture and forestry, and nothing for gun ranges in the district. So I'm here today to ask for support from our council and our elected members to recognise the importance that the club has in facilitating safety within the community and see this as an opportunity to work together for some workable noise levels for shooting ranges that are realistic. And that's the key word, realistic and achievable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you for coming in, and thanks for circulating the notes that you've spoken to as well. Right, next up, we have Douglas Jackson. Or maybe we don't. Unless he's on Zoom. Okay, we will move on. So we have one late item on the agenda. So someone prepared to move and second. Move Councillor Mailing, second and Councillor Dowler. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Declarations of interest. Any items on today's agenda? Councillor Dowler. Again, noted. Thank you. Minutes of the meeting of the 20th of July been circulated. Someone willing to move Councillor Mackenzie, seconded. Councillor Dakey. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. And for confidential minutes from the same meeting, move Councillor Dakey, seconded Councillor Councillor Joe Ellis. Councillor Ellis. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Right, we'll move on to the first report on the council agenda that relates to the Golden Bay Community Board, and this is being covered by Matt or Mike. Matt, if he's on Zoom. Welcome, Mike.
This is This is primarily a mechanical matter. The community boards don't have delegated authority to move amounts around within their budgets. The board looked at its budget for the year, determined it would like to be able to spend more money in this area, so the request has had to come through to council. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Maru?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to move.
Move, Councillor Maru. Is there a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Dowler. If there's no further question or comment, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? That's carried. Right, the next item, retrospective approval of submissions. John, retrospective approval submissions in Dwayne's name, but John is here to speak to it. Welcome back from your
Thank you very much.
breakaway. Yeah, and over
Thanks,
to you.
John. Thank you. Again, this is pretty mechanical, and unfortunately, the timing of a lot of these submissions mean they can't come up front. So what you've got there is 3 submissions that we've made to central government on, lined in the on the first page. So again, pretty mechanical, but I'm open to any questions if anyone's got anything.
Okay, are there any questions in relation to any of those submissions? If there is not, move Councillor Mailing, seconded Councillor Kinnermont. Thank you, Councillor Kinnermont. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Next up, amendment to standing orders around clarification of public forum deputations and presentations. And Elaine is speaking to this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the idea behind this report is to just simplify our rules around public forum deputation presentations. There's currently, in standing orders, we refer to public forum and deputations. In the agenda, we have public forum and presentations. And there seems to be a mix of people speaking in public forum on behalf of groups, or people speaking in presentations and having a longer speaking time. It can also lead to 30 minutes for public forum and then another 20 minutes for presentations, etc. So we propose to simplify the rules. So public forum is public forum, 5 minutes for an individual, 10 minutes on behalf of an organisation. They can have presentations as long as they're within their speaking time, and presentations will be removed from the agenda, but there still will be a presentation report available for staff, say if we wanted to have a CCO come and present, or an RDA, or somebody that council had been working with. But that's that part of it. Public forum is all of the public input, either individuals or groups, and presentations is in the business part of the agenda, and it is more for staff or organisations that we've invited to come. The second part is just to advise you that we will be reducing the commentary in minutes to what is required under legislation. Basically, it takes less staff resources. The minutes will be totally impartial because there's no, you chose to put what somebody said in as what somebody else said, and not what somebody else said. We're not required to have commentary, to have questions, etc. And we now are much better at our recordings. Our recordings are all on YouTube and they're time-stamped, so you can look for any particular item and go straight to that item to see the full conversation. And they will be legally compliant. We will still give rationale for amendments or changes to officers' recommendations, and we will still note actions that have been agreed at the meeting. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hill.
Oh, kia ora, thank you. Will there be any issue around what's an organisation or not? Seems like there wouldn't be really, would there? But I just feel like something's going to happen, isn't there? Some little thing about, well, are they really an organisation or not? So I was just thinking about that. I think given I think in terms of the minutes, I support this approach. I think because it's fraught to include some commentary and not other bits of commentary, and people on the meeting and reading over the minutes will make sense of them more so than somebody external who wasn't at the meeting. Their understanding of what the minutes might reflect, I think there can be a bit of a discrepancy there, not in terms of people being accurate who are taking the minutes, but anywho, I think given that we have time-stamped Zoom recordings, I think that's the place that people clearly need to go to hear about what any of us have said or not said. So, and just wanted to check, is this, in terms of other councils and how they take their minutes, do they take this approach of essentially recording decisions?
In the agenda report, we've put a link to Auckland Council. They have always only recorded decisions and amendments, that sort of thing. And their minutes have been subject to legal review many times and have come through as compliant. And I think Christchurch, quite a few do. It's becoming more common.
Yeah, I was thinking more about, is it tend to be you might know, but just that there's a, most councils tend to just record decisions, but perhaps that's not known. Thank you. Look, I'm happy to move the resolution.
Okay, thank you. So move Councillor Hill before. I've got a list of speakers, but is someone prepared to second? I'll second. It's been moved and seconded. I've got a list of speakers. I'll go through it. Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Bryant, Councillor Greening, Board Member Armstrong and Councillor Walker. Councillor Murray.
Thank you very much, through the chair. Just a question of clarification. So, for example, at a recent meeting, we had a presentation by a landowner on the Motueka River who came to talk to us on behalf of a number of landowners about issues with the river. And it was a good presentation and we were able to have the opportunity to actually ask questions and engage in the issue. So with this proposal, how would that be dealt with?
So it could come into public forum as an organisation having the 10 minutes, but the chair, if they actually wanted to interact with the presenter, do you know what I mean? If they felt that it was important and interaction was required and longer was required and more than questions of clarification was required, we still have a presentation report that comes later in the meeting.
If I may, okay, so the public forum could have been an option. I think my recollection is that this item took sort of substantially longer. So there would have been an opportunity for that individual to approach council staff and for it to come through on the main agenda as a presentation item.
That would be a decision of the chair and the group manager looking after the meeting if they felt that the topic deserved, do you know what I mean, further consideration.
Okay, so the option is still there then. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. Councillor Deputy Mayor Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just thank you for the report, Elaine. Just a question around, firstly, what's the driver behind doing this? Like we've had presentations, as far as I can recall, for quite a number of years. And even this morning's speakers in the public forum, in my view, they would have got a much better reception if that had been a delegation. They would have had the opportunity to have questions from councillors. Whether that's just because they didn't know that option was available or they weren't advised that. Yeah, I really don't see any great need for change. As Councillor Mackenzie alluded to, the delegation from the Motueka water users was a really proactive and interactive session and very beneficial, and they feel that they really got some benefit from it.
No, that's a good point. There is inequity at the moment. Sometimes if somebody just applies to do a presentation, they can get 20 or 30 minutes. But if somebody applies through, like deputations refer to in standing orders, but then we never refer to them again in the agenda, and the rules are the same as for public forum. This is separating public input into the public forum part of the meeting, and then input from people that have been invited to speak or staff or whatever in the business part of the meeting. It's simplifying the rules because they're not applied consistently at the moment because we've got various methods. We're trying to this is the public forum. Individuals have 5 minutes, groups have 10 minutes, and then there is still an opportunity for presentations, but that is more when it's agreed with the chair and the group manager that it's an issue that the meeting wants to discuss. Yeah.
And whether that, if it was a presentation this morning, whether it would have been at full council or a standing committee is open to debate, I guess. But my view is I think we should leave the intent to have deputations, presentations separate to public forum. That's what we have.
That's what we're doing, yeah.
But so what's the catalyst behind all of this?
Clarity.
Clarity and standing orders, it's repetitive. So it's quite common for public forum. So public forum is input from the public, and it gives 5 minutes to individuals and 10 minutes to groups.
I don't think we've ever had a public forum, or very rarely from groups that I'm aware of. In fact, that they should be advised if they're a group to do a deputation or a presentation, I'd have thought.
Well, so that's up to the chair and or in this case, and that's the conversation that I think that's exactly what this is all setting out. So it is clear that people, I think what we do, you run the risk though of people saying, oh, we can get half an hour for a presentation. If there's not a process and a check about it, then people will say, oh, I'm not going to come to public forum. I'm always going to want to do a presentation.
Exactly.
So this is just clarifying the process by which you do one or other, as opposed to it.
And maybe we do need to be tighter, but quite often that can lead to slightly going over time.
I'm generally not that tight on the 5 minutes. Like today was 6 minutes because I knew, how long they were going to speak. I had it, I wasn't going to cut Christina off with a minute to go because I knew. So we are reasonably flexible currently.
Yeah, well, I'm still not happy.
You're entitled to be unhappy.
So maybe.
Speaking of unhappy, Councillor Greening.
Yeah, so I'm also have a few concerns around the deputations. I'm not too sure why we are going there. We don't have many deputations anyway. My concern is that while public forum people can make these presentations, and obviously you can skirt around the 5 minutes by fracturing them up a bit from different people. The downside is we can't interact with those public forum sessions. We're not allowed to ask questions, and that's a missed opportunity. I appreciate that with the discretion of the group manager and chair, deputations can be moved to the agenda, but it is at the discretion of the chair and the group manager. And I think the community should be able to raise an issue, even if it is one that the chair and group manager are not happy to hear, because obviously there is a concern in the wider community, and that's the reason why they're raising a deputation issue. And the deputation allows us to then ask questions, which we can't do in the public agenda. So that's my concern with adding to the deputation. I don't think it's necessary. We don't have that many anyway. If it becomes a problem, then I can certainly say that we would look to move it. But at this stage, I see no reason to remove deputations from standing orders. It's an opportunity for the public to raise concerns, which a chair might not favourably look on, and therefore not add it to the agenda. So I think there should still be that transparency and opportunity for the community to raise issues that maybe council is reticent to hear. My other question relates to the minutes. So in terms of recording details, will proposed amendments also be recorded? Because that wasn't mentioned, only amendments.
If they gain a mover and a seconder, then they will be included in the minutes as per standing orders. If they lapse for the want of a seconder, then the minutes will just note that it lapsed for the want of a seconder.
And will that proposed amendment be recorded as being lapsed so people understand what was put forward and lapsed, or nothing is said?
We're not required to actually record the proposed amendment, just the fact that it lapsed for the want of a seconder. But
it probably doesn't make any sense to record it lapsed if you don't record what was moved.
That's right.
It seems
that's
reasonably
right.
straightforward.
So
A proposed amendment is moved, and then you note it was lapsed.
and then it lapsed for want of a seconder. That makes sense. That's common sense.
Okay, so I mean, I realise that this is now online, which is fantastic, but we finally got there, getting stuff up online. So it doesn't make the opportunity for minutes to be condensed. But we also need to make sure that we are recording, I've raised this before, in our minutes, when we start raising questions around health and safety, which we've had workshops on, and that's been raised about making sure we are asking the questions in the gaps, and probably a similar issue around audit. Now, I understand that these will be recorded, so we do have evidence of doing this, but I do wonder whether we need to be a little bit more diligent on our minute taking when we come to these obligations which council needs to fulfil. So how are you proposing to deal with those health and audit? We do need to ask questions, and we probably do need to record them, or we're leaving that to the internet.
Elaine.
So council's evidence of good decision making is the agenda report, the advice given in the agenda report, the background, the options, the analysis, the risk. That is what is considered to be evidence of good decision making. It's not the questions that you ask at a meeting. It's that is not actually your record of good decision making. It's the fact that you've been provided with information. Questions and debate are part of it, but we are not required to record those. And they are, fully recorded in the recording and easily accessible.
Yeah, so on our Health and Safety Act, we need to be conscious of gaps in the report, and we need to have evidence that we have asked about those gaps. And I have fully acknowledged that the minutes haven't been recording that, which has always been a concern for me, because we don't have evidence that we have inquired and investigated, especially the health and safety stuff, more thoroughly. But I'll just raise that. I'll leave that there. The fact that this has been recorded online and these questions can be evidence there is sufficient for me. But I do think that this has always been a gap in the minutes, and maybe we can have a think about that later on, whether you want to record it or not. Appreciate the efficiency and reducing staff time, given this is all now digitally recorded. So support that. I don't have to hire even more resource to record lengthy minutes, so that's all good. My question also is about the timeliness of publishing the online recordings such as these. Will they be put up straight after the meeting, or will there be a delay, given that the minutes are often delayed?
We are currently getting them up within 1 to 2 days of the meeting.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. Generally, I'm not supportive of deputation, so I can't support this motion if it's going to remove deputations, but I am supportive of the minute changes, noting the issues I've raised. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Granning. Elaine, just in relation to the
so just for clarity, in the track changes amendment, the current standing orders allow 5 minutes for public forum, but it also allows 5 minutes for deputations, and this is the confusion. So by removing that, it's not actually giving them 10 minutes for deputations currently, but if we put it in public forum and we allow 5 minutes for individuals and 10 minutes for organisations, we're actually giving more clarity and giving them longer.
But we can't ask questions in public agenda.
Then it would be, and then the point you raised earlier, that it would then be a case of them applying or having a discussion with the manager and the chair over going from either a public forum or a deputation, 5 or 10 minutes, to an agenda item, which would give them both longer and councillors the opportunity to ask questions. And I note your concern about that being a barrier if the chair and the manager didn't want to put it on there, but I personally don't see that as a major issue, but your point is noted. Board Member Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I did have 2 questions before I came the meeting, having read the agenda. One of them, I think, has been canvassed quite a lot by Councillor Mackenzie and others about what constitutes a group. If you've got, certainly in the community board, we like last time, we had the same topic brought up by, I think, 3 people. They could call themselves an organisation. I doubt whether they had some entity structure, but they could then presumably, if the same happened in council, call themselves an organisation and be treated in that manner. I just thought that was something, but I think you've already raised that by several people, so I don't think I can add anything to that. The other question, I guess, it doesn't affect this particular vote, but a fairly obvious one to me is, are you expecting or hoping that the same changes will take place in the community board management of meetings?
So there's a joint community board workshop tomorrow on code of conduct that the Legal and Democracy Services Manager is hosting, and she will cover that off tomorrow with both of the boards.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you. Through this recording is being live on YouTube. Have we ever put that out on comms to say that our meetings are now live on YouTube?
Yep, we have a link on our meetings calendar page on the website that takes you straight to YouTube, where you can look at any council meeting.
Well, that's not what my question. My question is comms. I know if you go onto my on TDC's website, you can see that, but I'm just wondering if we've taken our community on the journey of telling them these meetings are now recorded live and you can watch the whole thing. So none of it's cut and paste or removed. The whole meeting, all of our words are recorded and are now live on YouTube. I'd like to see that that's done, because a lot of my community is unaware of that. Because that gives the full commentary, because clearly in our minutes, which are going to even be more reduced, aren't going to say, well, that person had a concern and this is what they voiced. And that's my first part. And my second part is I do have a concern around, so if someone like today, we had that presentation, in my world, that should have been a 10-minute, not a 5. However, we haven't done this change yet. So thank you for graciously giving them 6 minutes. So for me, that's an agenda item. Yeah, I have concerns about where that club's going, what's happened. I have concerns about the dialogue. How does that get on an agenda now? If you don't choose to put it there, Mayor, where does it go?
So, okay, point noted, Councillor Walker. Thank you very much. So, well, 2 things is that we have to be very careful about compliance-related issues and all the legalities that sit around that. So, us sitting around debating that on an agenda item might present some challenges. So, that's exactly why there'd need to be a conversation with the manager and the chair of the committee about the appropriateness of particular items that need to come forward. So, yes, and point noted, yeah, they probably should have had 10 minutes under this proposal as clarified. So fortunately, Christina was speaking to a written submission and got through it in 5 and a bit minutes anyway. But I think this will provide, again, the reason I support it is because it does provide more clarity over, what people are entitled to. And I think, David's point, potentially people go, oh, instead of 3 people coming to speak, we'll now come as a group and we get 10 minutes. But I think we can overthink all this stuff. We just need to provide the clarity, ensure people are aware that they have an option of this, or this. So for me, this actually doesn't dramatically change the current situation, but it does provide more clarity for everyone involved in the process.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, once this decision is made, if it's carried or lost, we have the updated information ready to go for the speaking at meetings page. And I agree that we will make it more widely known to the public that recordings are available.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and so the last point, for agenda items, the council can request anything to come onto an agenda item. That's part of the action points that come out of meetings. So if people request a report, i.e. the council requests a report as opposed to individuals saying, I want a report, but you can convince the rest of the council for the necessity of a report. And I think the other safeguard is, for example, a concern that was raised earlier, if group X or Y comes and says, I want to make a presentation, and the chair and the manager just don't like what they hear and so they say no, well, they can come to the public forum and say not only what they wanted to say, but also that the chair and the turn me down. So again, I don't see this being a really big issue. Councillor Murray.
I think Mr. Mayor, I'm going to make it a bigger issue. I'm not sure that I am clear on groups, organisations, and status of that. So, did we land on, is it an incorporated registered organisation of group? Or what's the structure of a group and an organisation?
So if you look in 14 public forums of the track changes transit standing orders, it says a request to speak representing an organisation should be confirmed by an official of the organisation with delegated authority. So if we received a request from the chair of an organisation or the secretary of an organisation.
How about the spokesperson of a group of people in a residential street?
A spokesperson, well, you would need sort of clarification that they are representing.
And who would give that clarification in terms of this as a group? I guess that's my challenge. The other,
it's no different to what happens now, really.
And my other question is, this will still be in the 30-minute time period. So previously we had 30 minutes public forum and then we had presentations separate to the agenda. So in essence, this could reduce the ability for people to speak.
The public forum would be 30 minutes, but if the chair and the group manager had agreed that a presentation was appropriate, that would be in addition to this.
And I think it's actually in the report at 4.4, I think. 4.4. It is standing orders will capture it, but it is noted, however, that on occasion staff may invite external organisations. One would hope that the chair could also do that, but that will be captured in standing orders.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray, for those points of clarification. Are there any further speakers? If not, the resolution has been moved and sorry, Councillor Hill, would you like your right of reply?
I would, thank you, Mayor Tim. I think, when I was listening to this conversation, I've been pondering how people approach me over here in Golden Bay and want to know how they can let councillors know about things, and I just haven't found or seen any barrier at all to people being able to either come to public forum, so Forest and Bird maybe wanting to come to a presentation, as chair of the committee that I am, speaking with Kim about somebody that wants to come into a presentation, how that gets worked out. But I don't have a vibe that we tend to put up barriers to people wanting to come along. I don't see the changes that we're making are going to generate any barriers, any at all, really. I think that, so there are a number of ways that people can let us know about their concerns, and I'd hope that all of us as councillors are approached pretty regularly by the people in our wards around their concerns. And at times when I've encouraged a lot of people to come to public forum or to facilitate a presentation that they might be able to do as an organisation. So I think that that's the thing I've got in mind, is the overview over sort of our culture around this and our sort of atmosphere that we have around people coming along. I think the more that our standing orders can be clarified, the better. Note the point that deputations are now, 10 more than 5 minutes. And yeah, I just feel like that we have, quite a bit of openness to finding ways for people to bring concerns to us. So that's why I was happy to move it and I support it. And just reiterate, I suppose, around the minutes, I think if we can remind people through our comms about the ability to see any meeting that's been Zoomed, letting people know about that periodically, not just as a one-off, I think is good. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hill. I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Against. Can I ask my opposition to deputation changes are recorded, please?
Yes, you may, and yes, we will. Right, the next item on the agenda relates to the publication of historic minute books. Lucy, welcome.
Hello, my name is Lucy Long. I am the Program Leader of Information Management here at Tasman District Council. I'll take the report as read and I'm available to answer any questions the members may have.
Thank you. It's open for questions and all moving and seconding as the case may be. Moved Councillor Dowler. Seconded Councillor Kinnemont. Do you have any question or comment associated? Yes.
Question. The data is now at Elm Street. Well, the data is now at Elm Street, correct? The hard copies.
Yeah, the hard copies, yes.
So anybody can visit Elm Street and see them there, or eventually go online and see them.
So Archives New Zealand did a inspection of Elm Street facility a couple of years ago. I think I put it in the report, the time of it, and they assessed that Elm Street wasn't appropriate because it doesn't have accurate viewing facilities for the public. So currently our archive historic minute books aren't available to the public. If someone requests it for a Lagoima, for example, we have to arrange for it to be brought on site for someone to then view it and be supervised while viewing it.
And so hence the digitisation is the ability for people to access it because Elm Street isn't.
One last little question. Is there any costs involved? Because I'm being told that some people want to access some of our data and they've been charged for it. So is there going to be any cost for people to access the Waimea County Council minute books?
Or what I'm proposing is to actually publicise these digitised minute books onto the website so the public can access them anytime, and so without any costs incurred, because the money that's being used to digitise these was put in the long-term plan previously. So I think I also put that in the report.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions and the answers. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Mayor. So bullet point 4.4 says that Elam Street has been identified as not an appropriate place for storing record storage. I'm just wondering, do we have any idea what the cost is going to be to get an external offsite provider, and what is that a lease? Is that long term? What's required to keep these records safe?
So last year we went to tender to find a new offsite facility. TIMG won that tender. The current lease at Elm Street ends August next year. So we're currently in the process of cataloguing everything we have there and boxing them up in TIMG boxes and sending them to TIMG. Our current projections that it'll actually be hoping to be a cost saving exercise, given how much we pay for Elm Street and then how much we then pay for TIMG. So the plan is that we actually save us money and make us compliant.
Thank you. Good question. Great answer. Deputy Mayor Brian.
Thank Mr. Mayor. I'll see what I can do as well with the question. So just to follow up, firstly, from Councillor Walker's. So TIMG, is that a physical place or is that an online portal?
No, so that's the physical storage. Their facility is located in Christchurch, so our records will be stored, the physical records will be stored in Christchurch.
Right, so that makes it even more relevant that they're on the website, which leads me to my own question. One of the things I'm finding currently with the website, and other people have commented, there's so much stuff on there now, it's really hard to find something. So will there be quite a strong link to it? Because I know that there'll be a lot of interest in some of these records, one imagines, maybe. Firstly, and secondly, will there be some publicity that they are now available so that people, if they're interested, want to look something up?
So I just want to clarify, the records we're talking about and for this report are just the archive historical minute books, so not all records that are stored at Elm Street. Majority of records stored at Elm Street haven't been digitised. The property files have been digitised. That project finished December last year, and that makes up about a quarter of the records stored at Elm Street. That's about 1,200 boxes, and it's roughly over 3,000 boxes are stored at Elm Street, just to give an idea of numbers. So these archive records we will still be keeping because TIMG doesn't have the facilities to store these archive minute books because of the climate control, humidity, and all that's required for the best storage of these items. Yes, I would like to do publicity to show that these archive minute books are available to the public. I'm hoping that it reduce our Legoiman information requests. We get quite a few requests to view these minute books because they've now been digitized. It's a lot quicker for us as staff to go through and find it. We had a Legoima request not that long ago in regards to a meeting where a councillor unfortunately passed away during the meeting, and this was in 1971. And we were able to locate this minute book, locate the meeting, and send them a bit of a snippet of said meeting. So it's already speeding up our Legoima process. So I want it available to the public so that people who have these sorts of queries, historians, I mentioned in the report about Ministry of Education's changing its curriculum to include students doing local history. So I'm also hoping that students will find this information useful as well.
Right. And so accessibility will be quite easy on the website. I guess that may not be the question for you, but certainly.
I don't know if Steve's still up there online, but he was earlier.
One concern I do have about it being on the website, because we went to tender to digitise these minute books with NZMS. This is an external company that actually scanned the Treaty of Waitangi. So this is what they do of digitising historical records. Their quality of these records is very good, which makes them quite large. So that can be, when people are opening on the website, could take a while for the image to load. That's the only issue I can see.
Have you got a likely date that they're likely to be up? I'm sure there'll be people queuing.
Ideally, as soon as possible to reduce the Legoima requests. And I'm given the positive feedback we've received from museums about having these records digitised. I think it's going to be a real positive thing for the community.
Well done, thank you.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you, through the chair. Just a question in terms of the digitisation. Is it in a format that the text is actually searchable or not?
So we put that as a not a requirement, but as a desirable in our tender documents. And unfortunately, given we went with NZMS to ensure that we went with some reputable, good quality images, could actually handle this require, these images don't have that searchable OCR capability. We have been told we can edit subsequently afterwards or at a later stage. For us, the main focus was getting these captured because my concern, I always joke, the F word, fire and flood, because before we only had these in paper, and if anything happened to them, that's that history gone. So my main focus was getting it digitized, get it on the website available, and if a later stage we can apply the OCR so it is searchable, then we can do that.
Okay, thank you. Anything further?
That's all moved. I'm happy to move.
Has it been moved and seconded? It has been. So, all right, I think I'm not sure there'll be a massive queue, Stuart, but it is very interesting. It is actually really interesting to go back and look at old minute books and just see how and old agendas actually even more interesting to see how short and how limited the both information provided, the discussion and the subsequent outcomes processes were somewhat simpler back in the day. Not necessarily better, arguably not necessarily worse though. Righto, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Next up, okay, so we'll get through the next couple of reports and then we'll break probably and then come back to the confidential after morning tea. So machinery resolutions, page 61. Move Councillor Mailing, seconded Deputy Mayor Bryant. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Chief Executive's report.
They're all choices. So I do need to provide you with a verbal update to my report, and it relates to the judicial review taken by Richmond Holdings against Tasman District Council and Nelson City Council regarding the future development strategy. As previously advised, that judicial review was filed against both councils in relation to decision making around the future development strategy, in particular how it was applied to a property in Pohara. Councils have defended these proceedings, and I can confirm that the applicants have now discontinued their claim. As part of the discontinuance, the applicants have made a standard contribution to council's costs in line with the expectations in the High Court rules. While many staff were involved in the response to these proceedings, I would especially like to mention Jackie Deans, whose work in responding on behalf of councils has certainly contributed to this positive outcome. So other than that, I'll take the report as read and open to questions.
Okay, thank you. It's open for questions. Or moving and seconding, as the case may be.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to. I will, thank you. Personally, I'd like to note the Super Leaders Award to yourself that the CEO refers to. I think.
I thought Mark was going to bring that up.
I understand that it was a very outstanding citation from former Mayor Rees. I actually had the privilege of reading it before you did, or hearing it. And yeah, so well done. And I think it's a great reflection on this council and the way you've led us through some pretty challenging times. So well done and congratulations from us all, I think. So thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Councillor, are you moving the report?
I'm happy to move. That's what I meant to start off with. And also I'd like to acknowledge Marie and her award as well.
Thank you.
And I think that's all. That's that's from there.
Is there a seconder before? I've got Councillor Greening speaking as well. Seconded, Councillor Kinnamonth. Councillor Greening.
Congratulations.
Yeah, three questions. First, in relation to the FTE update, just noting that the numbers appear to be suggesting a 45% increase in staff since 2018, which was before the last LTP. I was wondering if I can get a 10-year view of the FTE changes. This was provided last year when you gave the summary. You gave a 5-year view, and I had asked for a 10-year view and haven't seen it yet. So can I please get a 10-year view from 2013 to 2023 of the FTE changes?
Yes, we'll take that as an action point.
Health and Safety Act noted that the contractor was managing the issues, but what are we doing? Because we are liable as much as the contractor is.
Could I clarify the question, please? Or could you repeat that?
Yeah, so the health and safety update that you provided, there were some incidents. It was mentioned that the response was being contractor managed. And I'm asking, what are we doing about it, given we are jointly and severally liable for any issues that arise from the Health and Safety Act?
Sorry, our response is to manage those health and safety incidents as we would any other staffing incidents. So to examine it with the contractor to ensure that we have the right processes in place with the contractor and that they are meeting our expectations of health and safety.
Right, so we haven't delegated it to the contractor. That's the impression I got. That was.
No, we become personally involved when we get those and assure ourselves that we're meeting our PCBU responsibilities.
Fantastic, thank you. Also just noting the increase in Ombudsman's investigations. I think any investigation the Ombudsman undertakes has to meet a threshold before they will step in. So there is a concern there that obviously the public may be getting a little bit frustrated with TDC. They feel compelled to go to the Ombudsman, and the Ombudsman is investigating these, and obviously the issues raised have their threshold for investigation. So I'm just wondering what we're doing to improve our information transparency And do we need to provide more training on the application of the Privacy Act, and maybe when it does not apply? Because I have heard anecdotally from a few residents that sought information from TDC about their own properties, told they can't receive the information due to the Privacy Act. I think is an incorrect application.
Through the chair, I think I would suggest that we provide some more information and context on our Ombudsman's complaints, Office of the Ombudsman complaints, because I don't think it's correct to draw a conclusion that an increase in numbers represents some shortfall on council's part. So if you consider things like how many of the investigations or complaints to the Ombudsman are upheld, those are matters that we might be able to provide you a bit more information on. So I wouldn't translate complaints to a shortfall on council's part. And it is, you know, it is fair to say that we have topical issues that draw out both a lot more complaints, Lukoima requests, and complaints to the Office of the Ombudsman. So it can go in peaks and flows, but I think it's something that perhaps we should provide you more information on.
Well, again, it would be useful to get a 10-year view, because I mean, I've been here nearly 10 years, and certainly in the last 5, the activity going for the Ombudsman has certainly picked up. And to me, that's a concern. I'm not too sure what's driving it. I assume it's because there's a degree of frustration from the public not getting the information they want from the council. But yeah, that would be useful to investigate a bit more. And again, a 10-year view on the number of investigations going to the Ombudsman would be useful, because again, that shows a trend. I've certainly seen in my time here, I would say a little bit more bureaucratic, I suppose. I know that's a harsh word to use, but I know in the past the approach of council has been a lot more open. I remember the former CE being here and making it very clear that they had really good channels of communication, and virtually people could nearly talk to the managers of teams. And I think a lot of people feel that they've maybe lost that channel to ask those questions. That may be true or not true. I'm just recording anecdotal comments made to me. So again, it would be useful to maybe drill into this a little bit more.
Through the chair, firstly, I would like to suggest that we have one employee that manages these requests for us, and they are pretty full on. I would have some concerns about asking for a 10-year view. I think that would require a lot of collation work that I don't think would be justifiable, and it would be appropriate first to consider a bit more information on the current complaints we've had and perhaps the last 12 months before we launch into a big piece of work to undertake a 10-year view. So
well, just a 10-year view in terms of the number, the number, not the actual
Mark,
investigation.
Thank you very much. Mark, you asked the question.
I know, I'm just clarifying my question,
because
I think,
so if you
just the CE's suggesting a more thorough investigation than what I'm asking for.
Mark,
I'm asking for a 10-year view on the number of.
Thank you, Mark. So if you just let Janine finish.
So for a high level of information, I'm sure that we can accommodate that. So we'll do that. The other point around the availability of information, I think it's fair to say that we have put better processes and systems around Lukoima. In the past, those, going back a few years, those systems have not been very robust. We haven't been recording correctly. We haven't been going through the proper process for releasing information. Lukoima is a very good test and requires us to seriously consider the information that must be made available. And so it's a much more rigorous process and it gives a better service to those people requiring information, whereas just seeking it through a service request or directly through a manager doesn't give them that same assurance. It also gives them the recourse to go to the Ombudsman if they feel they haven't been given information that they should have been provided. So it's a much more robust process. Some may consider it more bureaucratic, but I think when you weigh up risk, council is far better protected from having a good, clear, transparent and recorded process.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Walker and then Councillor Mackenzie.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Chair. With your health and safety report, you've got a line item there, 6.3, about the Streets for People meeting in Motueka. I think it's fair to say that it was quite unfortunate, the wording that was used in that meeting, because until those words came out, that room, there wasn't angst or hostility. The fact that we chose to use some inappropriate words, in my opinion, that amped the temperature up in the room, and that what resulted in the pushback from a certain sector within the Motueka community. And I think that needs to be recorded somewhere, not just that the meeting became hostile. Thanks.
As somebody who wasn't at the meeting, I can't really comment, and I haven't had that that relayed to me by other party, anybody else. So I'd appreciate a little bit more knowledge before I make a comment on that. So perhaps I could get some more information from you about that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mackenzie, then Councillor Kinnemont.
Thank you very much, through the chair. Well, there's certainly a lot to celebrate, I think, in terms of the report. I know the Mayor doesn't want us to mention the Super Leader Award again, but you know, I think that we can all be proud of that he's taken out that award. I also want to acknowledge the work of Marie. I think that's absolutely super that you won that award. And of course, picking up on the people that may not have taken out the awards but were nominated as well. I think that's really important to note. I mean, Streets for People, Jamie and his team, you know, they're doing a great job, and it's tricky. And also, you know, we shouldn't forget that the council has gone live with its HRIS and payroll system. You never want to be that organisation that hits the headlines in the paper where we can't pay our staff. So congratulations to the team on that as well. I did wonder if I could just get a little bit more information about the operational steering group on affordable waters. So I note that we've had a meeting. There's obviously some maybe uncertainty, I don't know, with respect to a general election later this year. How is that work going? Are we making the progress that we need with the councils across the top of the south?
Through the chair, that work, I would say, is definitely somewhat impacted by political uncertainty. So it is something that we are trying to strongly influence, that we get the resources and the work of the NTU behind us to get the work as far advanced as we can. And as this council has discussed before, whether the Water Services Act is repealed or not, we do see a future of water collaboration across water services across Te Tauihu. So we are trying to progress the work on the understanding that it's either through the reforms or the development of alternative proposals for collaboration. And that's why it is so useful for us to have the NTU and their resources behind us, and to get as much of that work done as possible, as soon as possible. I've just written to the Chief Executive of the Department of Internal Affairs to ask for his commitment to put those resources behind us, and that we get that work underway as quickly as possible, and that comes with the support of the operational steering group. And so that operational steering group is to look at the operational implications of transition, and we can start doing that now, and we really want to start doing that now, and we would like the NTU and DIA to get in behind us and put those resources in place.
If I may, just a follow-up question. So are we still proactively trying to pursue a path which would be earliest implementation possible, and be looking at options around incorporation into a bigger entity?
On the pursuing earliest date possible, what we have been conveying by agreement by the three councils is that we want all options open to the council. It is fair to say that we consider that early action works to our advantage, whichever implementation date we get. We either get, but we really want to get that work started as soon as possible, which would make all options more realistic. In a roadshow from the NTU, we know that there is a 12 to 15 month runway to implementation once you actually establish your basic proposal. So the reality of a July 2024 implementation date, I think it's fair to say that's not realistic. What the NTU have been proposing is that there could be dates other than beginning of a financial year. So they are saying there could be dates like March 2025. Personally, I have a lot of concerns about a part year implementation or partway through the year. And I have some cynicism that the issues of LTPs and annual plans and everything else could be managed in a context of an implementation partway through the year. So those discussions continue, and at the moment it's all options on the table. And I'm sorry, the second part of your question.
Well, there was always the indication that actually if you had a willing acceptor and a willing council who wanted to go, that there could be some amalgamation into a bigger entity.
So the entities arrangement under the Act is for the 10 entities, and it requires I think a 75% agreement by the parties if it were to be merged into a larger entity. So we're working on the assumption that entity H is what we're driving towards, that if the reforms don't proceed, that there is agreement across Te Tauihu for some collaboration. And I don't think anybody's ruling out discussion around a larger entity, but that's not where we're focusing our efforts at the moment.
The legislation requires you to have created your first entity before you can entertain the idea of joining another entity. So you can't hop through, cut out a step. So you've still got to. Right, Councillor Kinnemont.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and probably expanding on what Councillor Greening was talking about, I have concerns about some of the Legoima processes. I've got one ratepayer who asked for a global question where the problem was just something quite narrow and could be quite focused. But the answer to the Legoima request was hundreds and hundreds of bits of paper. So to me, the Legoima system seems like a black box, and I would like to be able to be given the opportunity to learn a bit more about it so I can impart some of my knowledge onto these people who are complaining and say, don't ask a global question, focus it down to here that'll support our staff and possibly the time required and maybe the complaint. So my question is, could I have a bit more information about how the system works, the process works, that sort of thing?
I was always really happy to share that information with you and make that available to you, and welcome any sort of role that you might play in sort of narrowing down some of the requests that come to us. It might be useful if you could give me the example, and then I could have a look, as in, what could we learn from this? If I was to see clearly that a global question, a very large, broad question was asked with an intent that it was actually a smaller set of information, that might give us some opportunities to say, how can we improve the process and make it more transparent to people that they can narrow down the process?
So my question, sorry, Councillor Kinnemont, are there other people who'd be interested in having a small session that explains the Legoima, the process, what we do, why we do what we do, and enable? Yeah, okay, so I think in terms of. Okay, cool, thank you. Anything further, Councillor Kinnemont?
No, just that the complainant question, I wouldn't like to.
Oh, no, you could do that.
At the moment.
Yeah, no, you don't have to do that in this meeting. That's Councillor Maru.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just quickly, can I also be sad in terms of 9.2 and just acknowledge our Harbour Master's departure? So certainly going out in the water with him, his relationships across the water with a whole lot of users will be a big loss. So I join your sadness.
Yeah, Thank you. Point noted. And I think it is really important. And the replacement and the process around that replacement and what it is we are looking for in a replacement harbour master is certainly at the very top of the list. All those things that Councillor Murray just mentioned in terms of the importance of those relationships, the approach that they take to the implementation of the rules and regulations that operate in the maritime space, because our current Dan Kenny has done a phenomenally good job in administering a set of rules and regulations in a very challenging environment in a way that has always been focused on achieving good outcomes and hasn't, been limited by the pedantic, I dotting and T crossing that sometimes comes with compliance activities. So if we can replicate that, then we'll be incredibly fortunate. I'm acutely aware that the managers acutely aware that our council really values that approach to compliance and administration wherever we can possibly achieve it. So point well made. Anything further?
Instead of having my right of reply, could I just make one further comment?
Well, you can, yes.
Thank you.
I mean, I was going to, but I'll use it as your right of reply, and I'll just. I was just going to add actually to the thing about complaints and ombudsman that was raised by Councillor Granning. I think again it would be a good opportunity to sit down and understand. I think understand that sometimes the number of complaints doesn't mean more people. It can be a few people with lots of complaints. Again, the issues that are driving those complaints. So I think it is really valuable to understand exactly what it is, who's complaining, about what, how often, what that means for our organisation in terms of impact on resources. I think, again, anecdotally, a small number of people consume an enormous amount of resource in this space. So having that conversation, understanding it a bit like the stuff around Magoima, and perhaps it could be wrapped into the same conversation that involves a similar group of staff, that would be really useful. Councillor Bryant, Deputy Mayor Bryant, your right of reply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just like to also in the report acknowledge the Values Award event which I attended while you were overseas, and it was really a great acknowledgement of staff that have been outstanding in their areas, I guess, and really contributed to the organisation. So, and just honoured them, I guess is probably the right word. And it was really well appreciated by all staff involved. So it's something that I'd like us to see continue, and really does highlight to myself, I did, just how many great staff we do have who are doing great work, and a lot of them under the radar a lot of the time. So just really like to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bryant. I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. And we'll just do my one before we break and then have a cup of tea. So just in kind of carrying on from where Deputy Mayor Bryant finished off, I think those recognition events are really important. I mean, often we do end up focusing, and that's part of our role is inquiring and querying where things might not have worked out how we liked, or questions about what we can do better and what we can improve. But it's always great to recognise that there are a whole lot of people every day, every month, who actually go out and do really great work on our behalf right across the organisation. So recognising that's crucially important. And then I think, again, when I reflected on the award I picked up in Christchurch, I think it is that collective thing that makes it easier to lead in this environment. And we are fortunate collectively that right from the Tasman District Council's inception in 1989, a culture was set up by the initial CEO and council, and then carried on through subsequent councils and mayors. That culture of teamwork, and something that when I was speaking and talking to people afterwards, that ability for us to interact across the organisation, to have conversations with people in different departments at every level, and I think the sense of respect and understanding that creates is a real strength of this organisation, and enables us to get a lot more out of the collective than it would be if it was. And it's so unusual, and people, when you talk to them and other councils, kind of go, how does that even work? So I think it is something we've got to, again, continue to work on, always try and improve, ensure we respect the barriers and the relative areas of responsibility. But and I think this report highlights a number of the things that have been either recognised internally, recognised externally, in terms of like Marie's award and the nomination around the work that's been done for Streets for People. And it is that collective thing that really is, I think, what makes this council actually, in inverted commas, reasonably good at what we do. Just in terms of the other items, I'll just briefly touch on my trip. It was very interesting to go to Richmond in the UK. Their council chamber is somewhat different to ours, and I did note that Robin has, I think, somewhat. Well, where is the picture of the Queen? It's gone. We had a picture. Yeah, I know. We had a picture, and then we were debating whether or not we needed to replace both the old picture of the Queen, and then she subsequently passed on. And but the picture in that room is actually a picture of Queen Elizabeth I. So it both indicates quite how long the council has been in place, and also that they haven't updated the picture of the Queen for longer than we haven't. So it was very interesting, and I took the opportunity to do a number of other things as I travelled around. Amongst which there was a whole lot of places we stayed where people were doing a lot of the rewilding, re-wetting kind of woodland development, rewilding, and so the whole biodiversity conversation and the challenges and facing very similar ones. The one thing that's notably different is the amount of money that is provided to landowners to do a lot of the things that they're expected to do in terms of that environmental management and compliance. It's just a very different system that operates. However, it's trying to achieve and do many of the same things that we are either currently expected to or will be expected to under things like the National Policy Statement for Indigenous Biodiversity. So it's very good opportunity to, I think, remind certainly me how many of the challenges we face are exactly the same challenges being faced all around the world, and the fact that no one really come up with foolproof solutions to any of them. Otherwise, it would be easy just to go and pick them up and implement them here, but nothing's ever quite that simple. So with that, I will move the receipt of my report. Is there a seconder? Councillor Mackenzie, any other questions? Councillor Maru, and then I'll come back to Councillor.
I think it was to be brief, but is the photo on page 74, is that an indication that on the left-hand side of your 73 photo that was full? So the chamber's being empty, does that mean the pub was full?
I actually, neither of them were overly full, but it was kind of middle of the morning. So, but yeah, it is an interesting place. If we do look at building another service centre in Motueka, perhaps we could look to combine, a pub and dining in one end and council chamber in the other, and not sure if that improves the public discourse or not. So, Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you very much, through the chair. Just with regards to the rollout of the bus, I mean, honestly, I drive around and I should be on the bus, but every time I see somebody in a bus stop, it makes me smile because it is so fantastic to see. But I guess I'm always interested in data. So how will we be updated in terms of whether we're achieving what we've set out to achieve? What committee will that go to?
I think there is some information floating around, because I actually wrote a press releasey thing or put some quotes in one the other day about data and trips, and so I'm sure it's available. Jamie.
Yeah, through the mayor. We will bring regular updates on usage to both the Operations Committee and the Regional Transport Committee.
That's great, because I think we want to be advocates and to help put that out there in our communities, and hope that success, breeds success.
I think Jamie might comment, but I think there are some routes that have been very successful, high numbers, to the extent that we're having to change some things, add buses or have buses follow buses, because there's so many people up, and particularly around school time with students as well, which is another whole conversation about school buses and students. So amongst the many, what are the teething problems or small challenges that have cropped up along the way around timing and routes and bus stops and things that it's just inevitable, I guess, in bringing in a new service. It is slightly disappointing that people are so quick to criticise when you do something new and it hasn't been any service, and then very quickly it's like, oh, the service isn't on timely enough or not enough, or but too big, too small. That's the other thing. Buses are too big on some, then another posts are too small, and it's not enough. Oh my goodness. So having said that, I think genuinely most people I talk to are finding it really, really good, despite the small challenges. And there are certainly routes like Wakefield, I think it's been pretty well utilised, and again out to Motueka. So yeah, I don't want to go there. Councillor Dowler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just a comment. My wife looks after a 90-year-old lady on a Wednesday, takes her grocery shopping, etc. On the way into town yesterday, she has a vision impairment, but she still can see stuff. She saw one of the new buses. She was quite rapt, and it stopped at a bus stop. So my wife pulled over and let her watch the thing squat down, and 4 people hopped on with suitcases. Obviously, they were heading to the airport in the main street of Motueka. So my wife come home last night. She says, you should be very happy, you guys, that people are obviously using the buses to go to the airport from over there. So that was a good report straight up.
Yeah, it'd be great to get the statistics and start to understand that, anecdotal is good, and then it would be good to also see the data that kind of either reflects or agrees with what anecdotal feedback or what we do in terms of changes that might be necessary. Councillor Kinamont.
Through you, Mr. Chair. In your visit to England, did you discuss or investigate the taxing system? Were we doing a current system of taxing rateable properties, where in other parts of England they do poll tax by the person? Did you talk about that at all?
Yeah, I'm not sure there is. The poll tax was certainly attempted / tried by Margaret Thatcher some time ago. Not sure it was ever fully implemented. I guess the fundamental difference was 2 main differences. Huge percentage of their revenue comes from central government, so i.e. tax money that flows into, I think it's somewhere around 45 to 50% of most councils, and for the larger combined authorities it's 65%, up to 65% of their total funding. For example, Greater Manchester, I think it's $1.5 billion annual budget, 400 million of that's police. So again, their services are very different: police, health, education. They still have rates, but they don't revalue. So there hasn't been revaluation in the UK for 30 years. And so they just have bands. The only time your house changes bands is when you sell it. And obviously that value flows in, you move up a band. But if you've been in your same house, you stay in the same band you were for ages. And the other thing is that business taxes are collected centrally and then redistributed in order to prevent, in inverted commas, councils effectively pushing up commercial tax rates to subsidise households, because clearly households vote and businesses tend to vote not. So there are some significant differences. The thing that's the same though, they don't have enough money to do what they want. Their privatised water system is in an absolute shambles. Having said that, there were several articles I read while I was there that said, actually, if you look at all the statistics around what's failing, what's not working, the lack of investment, it's actually not significantly worse in England under the privatised system than it is in Wales and Scotland that operate under systems like is being proposed for here. So there's lots of differences. The fundamental thing that's the same is if you want lots of stuff, infrastructure, community, someone's got to pay. And affordability is as big a challenge there with their population and with their different systems and structures as it is here. So yeah, it is very interesting to look at how things are both different and the same. Right, it's been moved and seconded. I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. So if we break for... Oh, do you want to move into confidential before we break? Okay, someone move, we go into confidential. Move Councillor Mailing, second, and Councillor Walker. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. So when we return, we'll be in the confidential part of the meeting.